Hey everybody. On this prophecy update, I want to talk about the aftermath of the LA wildfires. As you know, the LA wildfires burned over 40,000 acres in some of the most prime real estate in California. I think the death toll is up to 28 people, and there's estimations of $50 billion worth of damage. And one of the things I want to talk about and how this leads into prophecy is that many of the people that lived in these areas did not have fire insurance because, as I mentioned before, a lot of the insurance carriers would not insure people in California because California put out a stipulation to all the insurance companies that they can't raise the premiums. And so the insurance companies said, bye-bye, we're out of here, and they left California. And a lot of the people then didn't have insurance and will not be able to afford to build back their homes because no one just has that kind of cash, especially in that kind of area. And so, especially if they can't get insured. So what ends up happening? Well, obviously the Hollywood elites, they have plenty of money, they can rebuild or whatnot, but that's not the plan that's going to go down. Many of the people whose homes got burned didn't have insurance, they're not going to be able to replace their homes, they don't have the money to rebuild, and if they owed money to the bank and that mortgage is still outstanding, the bank will seize control of that. But what I think you're getting ready to watch is a massive land grab by the state of California, and how this leads into prophecy. What do you mean? We know from the World Economic Forum that they came out and said you will own nothing and be happy, and they want to get into what we call a circular economy, that you don't own anything, you just rent things. And they're quickly bringing us to that point. And we have seen the pop-ups of 15-minute cities all over the globe, and California is no exception. And what Gavin Newsom came out and said sent me kind of a message of, oh, I now know what he wants to do. So he said in an interview saying that we're going to reimagine Los Angeles. We're Los Angeles 2.0, and we're going to bring in a Marshall Plan to redo LA. And what he was in effect saying, if you understand the concept of the 15-minute city and the concept that comes from you own nothing and be happy, that is exactly what Gavin Newsom is pushing. And so instead of these people going back into their residencies and rebuilding, what Gavin Newsom plans is to build 15-minute cities all through LA where the fires had burned people out. It was actually convenient for him that these fires happened in January with all these winds, and it was like the perfect storm and burned all these people out. It reminds me of what happened in Lahaina in Maui, where they were on prime real estate, the people that live in Maui, and they would never move. Some of those homes in Lahaina were there for decades upon decades, over 100 years, some of them going back to the 1800s, believe it or not, some of the historical places. And all of a sudden, gone. Poof, in an instant, gone. And those residents are not going to be able to build back. So the only people that would be able to control that area is either the state of Hawaii or multi-billion dollar investors that can build 15-minute cities. Because it's kind of funny that the same thing that happened to Maui in Lahaina is the same thing that happened in LA. And again, it's convenient that they just burned everyone out. That the fires went crazy and just burned everyone out. There was no water. There was all kinds of problems. The fire department had been cut. We have incompetent people at the fire department, the head of the fire department. You had the incompetent mayor. You had incompetent everybody. The person checking the fire hydrants, totally incompetent. Perfect storm. But it did allow them to achieve their goal. And their goal apparently is LA 2.0. Marshall Plan to bring a 15-minute city, or basically all to that area. What other people also don't know is that Gavin Newsom has been behind the high-speed railway that comes from Sacramento and the Bay Area all the way down to LA, connecting LA and San Francisco. The two most liberal places on the state are going to be connected by high-speed rail that no one wants and costs billions and billions of dollars. And that high-speed rail goes right into LA where they're going to build these 15-minute cities. Now, if you're not aware of the 15-minute city concept, You need to check this out a little bit and do some research. But really, in the nutshell, the 15-minute city basically puts people in an area, in a concentrated area, in apartments, and it's kind of a stay, play, and work area that you don't leave. And you don't commute to work, you live where you work, and you go to school where you work. And it's like the ultimate control. People think, well, it's going to be convenient. It's not. It's taking away your liberties of movement. In some parts of Europe, you can't leave that 15-minute city more than 100 times a year. And so it's the ultimate control. And so what's going to happen is these super complex apartment buildings will get built, and in the middle of them will be the stores, the shops, the grocery stores, food, whatever, and they'll be able to work, stay, and play, so to speak, all in the same area. And it's really the ultimate control, and it really achieves you'll own nothing and be happy, because what California's doing, this is going to go to the rest of the nation, is they're going to make the premiums on insurance and the affordability of homes so costly that the average middle-class person will not be able to afford it. The younger generation, I hate to tell you this, will not be able to afford to buy a house. They're not. They're going to have to rent for the rest of their life. That's how unaffordable things are in California. But you think, well, that's just in California. It's not in California. The concept of the 15-minute city is going to spread all over the nation if it's not stopped. That's what's happening all over Europe. That's what's happening all over the West. The concept came from the World Economic Forum, and the UN backs it up completely. And so anyone that's been trained by the globalist regime, like Gavin Newsom, or anyone else that had been trained by them, because Gavin Newsom was trained by Klaus Schwab, are going to try to implement the 15-minute city. And so what's getting ready to happen in LA is a rebuild, but it's not going to be of residents owning homes. It's going to be a 15-minute city with these massive apartment complexes to warehouse people in, concentrate them into urbanization, because they hate rural areas, because people in rural areas are harder to control. They have more freedom. And people that live in rural areas think independently. They're not dependent on government. But if you're going to control a populace, you put them in a concentrated area, you put them in an urban area, and then you can control them. And then if you take away their guns, then you really have control. But that's what we're looking at. And that's part of Gavin Newsom's plan. And so prophetically, this goes to, controlling people. And we know that a one world government will control people. And the way to do it then is concentrate people in small areas and control them. So that's what they're going to do. There's not going to be free access to travel anywhere you want. They're already talking about that. Most of the countries in the world are now requiring visas to travel just for tourism. And eventually they're going to restrict travel to, quote unquote, save the planet. And oh, by the way, the 15-minute home is going to be sold to people as saving the planet, because you're not going to have to drive your car and pollute the planet. All this nonsense, the green hoax that we all know about. But it's all to save the planet. And unfortunately, too many people think that will save the planet. It's stupid. There's no such thing as saving the planet. God told Noah in Genesis 8:22 that nothing's going to change as far as the weather is concerned as long as God's in control. So that it's crazy. It's a lie. But people believe the lie. And so what we're looking to see is more control, not just the state of California, but this concept is growing. And it will happen to the entire nation eventually, and to the entire world, to eventually the one world government will control everybody, control the buying and selling, where you live, what you can do, where you can go. And ultimately it'll turn into technology that will be able to track where you're buying and selling and where you're going by a biometric chip. That's where it goes. So that's a preview in LA about what's happening. And the funny thing about this is, and I don't mean to be conspiratorial, the perfect storm to push these people out and build a 15-minute city on prime real estate sure is funny that all came together at once. It sure is funny that there wasn't enough water. Sure is funny that that everything fell in place for the perfect firestorm to happen, to move thousands upon thousands of people out of prime real estate area that would never have moved ever. And yet, now we have displaced, I think, over 200,000 people. 40,000 acres are now available for Gavin Newsom to build his 15-minute city. So that's our take on that. We'll see how things develop. But remember this, when you see these things begin to happen, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. God bless you. We'll see you next time.